There was a young man in his 20s who moved into a new apartment in New York City. The night he moved in, he was laying awake in his bed when he heard strange noises coming from his kitchen. When he turned on the lights, he was horrified to see hundreds of tiny cockroaches scurrying under the refrigerator and the kitchen cupboards. He realized that his apartment was completely infested with cockroaches. The next day, he asked one of his coworkers for advice about his cockroach problem. The coworker said that she had a similar problem and bought a pet gecko. She let the gecko loose at night and it took care of all the cockroaches. That evening after work, the young man visited a pet store and bought a pet gecko. When he got home, he let the gecko out of its cage. It immediately scurried into the kitchen and disappeared under the refrigerator. Then he heard a sound. Gecko, gecko, sound followed by a loud snap as the gecko's tongue caught hold of a cockroach and pulled it back into its mouth. Days went by, and Howard saw fewer and fewer cockroaches. The gecko was doing its job well. Occasionally he would hear the telltale snap of the gecko's tongue, and he knew it was catching the cockroaches and gobbling them up. One day after work, he was making dinner for himself when he saw the gecko chase one of the last cockroaches in the house under the refrigerator. He saw the cockroach scurry under it with the gecko far behind, struggling to go under. That's when he realized that the gecko was getting bigger. He didn't see the gecko for days after that. Sometimes he would catch a glimpse of it out of the corner of his eye. Each time, it appeared to be bigger and bigger. One night, as he was laying in bed, he heard some strange noises in his room. Then he heard gecko, gecko, and a loud snap. The next day, the young man was absent from work, but nobody thought anything of it. They just assumed he wasn't feeling well and decided to take a sick day. When he didn't show up the next day or the next, his coworkers became very concerned and called the police. When the police knocked on the young man's door, they got no answer. They broke down the door and entered the apartment. In the bedroom, they found no traces of the young man, but were horrified to see an enormous gecko sitting on the bed. Its belly was huge, and it stretched, and it just lay there lazily, regarding them with its big reptilian eyes. When they looked closer, they noticed something horrible. Sticking out of the corner of its mouth, there appeared to be a human foot. There was a 15-year-old girl named Chloe who created an account on Instagram. She had always took pictures of herself at school and at home and posted them online. Chloe spent a lot of time trying to get as many followers as possible on her profile. She would browse through the other users' accounts and leave a comment on their photos saying, "Please follow me, I follow back." One day when she was looking for new followers, she came across a strange profile. It was a man who took pictures of dismembered dolls. He never showed his face in any photos. As usual, Chloe left a comment on his photos, "Please follow me, I follow back." An hour later, the man followed her account. He left a comment on her latest photo saying, "I'm following you." Whenever she posted a new photo, he would always leave the same comment, "I'm following you." She never understood it, but she didn't care. Chloe was obsessed with gathering as many followers as possible and getting as many likes as she could on her photos. One night when her parents had gone to the supermarket, Chloe got a picture sent to her Instagram account. When she opened the photo, she realized that it was a picture of her sitting on her bed. All of a sudden, she was paralyzed by fear, and she began to feel a terrible chill take over her body. She heard footsteps approaching and a gravelly voice behind her saying, I'm following you. There was a young boy named Kenneth who lived with his parents. When his father got a new job in the city, the family moved into the top floor apartment of an old residential building. Every evening when Kenneth came home from school, he had to take a long elevator ride to the 25th floor. After a few days, he began to get a horrible feeling whenever he stepped into the elevator. He couldn't quite explain why, but for some reason he had the distinct impression that he was being watched. He also thought he could hear strange whispers and mutterings as the elevator ascended to the top floor. One evening when he arrived home from school, he saw some other boys who lived in the same building. They were a few years older than him, and he noticed that they avoided the elevator altogether. He caught up with them as they were walking up the stairs. When he asked the boys why they weren't taking the elevator, they told him about some rumors that had been circulating among the kids who lived in the building. Apparently, all of the other children who lived there thought that the elevator was haunted. They said they heard disturbing shrieks and moans coming from the elevator shaft. They also told him about a kid who had gone missing in the residential building only a few months before. He and his parents moved in. Kenneth had a sinking feeling in his stomach as he listened to the story of the older boys. They said the kid had mysteriously disappeared and nobody was able to find him. He was still listed as a missing person. The adults thought he must have been kidnapped and the police were still investigating, but the kids suspected that it had something to do with the elevator. That is why they avoided using it whenever possible. When Kenneth reached the top of the stairs, he ran into his apartment and breathlessly told his mother about the unsettling stories the older boys had shared with him. She just laughed and dismissed them as the typical rumors and legends that kids and teenagers always like to use to scare each other. His mother said that there was no such thing as a haunted elevator, and it was a childish event to believe such outlandish tales. Still, Kenneth couldn't help being terrified of the old elevator. He took to using the stairs as much as possible, even though it was a very long climb and it left him tired and out of breath. The only time he would use the elevator was when his mother or father were with him. He figured that nothing would happen to him as long as one of his parents were there to protect him. One evening, Kenneth came home late after football practice. He was deathly tired and was really dreading having to climb the stairs. He walked into the lobby of the residential building and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his mother standing there with his back to him, waiting for the elevator. The doors opened and she stepped inside. Kenneth jumped in after her. The elevator doors closed, and that's when he realized that the light wasn't working. They were in complete darkness. Kenneth broke out into a cold sweat. They started to go up into the darkness. The frightened boy heard an eerie chuckling sound. "Mom, did you hear that?" he asked nervously. As the elevator ascended, the chuckling grew louder. It sounded like evil laughter. "That's the sound I told you about, Mom," he said, shaking with fear. A chill ran down his spine when he heard a deep voice reply, "You really believed I was your mother?" If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you'd like to, you can follow me at Twitter. The handle is @FuzzyPantaloons, and I'll see you all next time.